Manager of our support group leader network called InSync. And as you probably know, which is why you're here, we are doing a training this morning for you all on Zoom, the platform that we're using right now, so that you all can use our pro account or perhaps your own accounts. That's fine too, but then just learning how to use Zoom, and it's just the basics. So we're gonna be going through that today. And if you are gonna be using PMD Alliance's pro account, we're going to be talking about how to schedule your meetings with us. So we have a lot of good information for you today, and I'd like to leave extra time for any questions that you might have. So I think, looks like we have about, let's see, 25 of us so far. So hopefully some more people will be joining, but just so you know, we are recording this session, so we will have this available to us in the future. We are going to have a special page for support group leaders on the PMD Alliance website, which will include a lot of resources for you, and this will be one of those resources that you can access in the future. So yeah, I mentioned last week, if you were on the info session with us, that it's advisable that you have a co-host, you know, a friend from your support group who might be able to help facilitate your online meetings. So hopefully they're on today. If not, again, you can share this training with them in the future, and we can get everybody up and running that way. So I think we shall go ahead and get started with our content. And that way we know we'll have plenty of time for our question and answer session. So I'm going to be sharing my screen with you. And we're going to start just with a little PowerPoint. Let's see. Okay. All righty. So, can everyone see my screen? Hopefully you can. Yes, I can't see you for some reason, so I'm just gonna—
We can see you, Shannon. We can see the screen, Shannon.
Oh, there you are. Okay, hi. You popped up when you started speaking. Thank you. Okay, so today, I just thought we would start with a little overview of what we're going to be doing not only this morning, but also on Thursday when we have our second training session. So today we're going to be going over how to schedule a group meeting time, again, if you're going to be using PMD Alliance's Pro Zoom account. And then we're also going to be learning some Zoom basics. A lot of you might be familiar just being a participant and coming on to a Zoom presentation or a Zoom call, but it's a little bit of a different story when you're hosting. So that's what we're gonna be looking at today, and of course, Q&A. And then Thursday, we'll be looking at Zoom again. We might look at some more advanced functions possibly, depending on what your interests are, and I can get a sense of that today from your questions. And we're also going to be addressing some online facilitation techniques and ideas for how you might be able to run your meetings in this online format, which is different than in person, isn't it? So we can talk about that as well in more Q&A. Okay, so scheduling your group meeting. So if you're going to be using our pro account, this is going to be the method we're going to be using. So we had talked a little bit about using a calendar app called Calendly this past week. And we've decided against it. So what we're going to do is keep it a little bit more simple. This is going to work better for everyone. So the way that you're going to request your meeting is to email us at insync@pmdalliance.org. And we're going to ask you for a little bit of information so we can have everything we need as we proceed with scheduling your meeting on our calendar. So your name as the primary host, any co-host names, and then everyone's email addresses so we can be in touch with all of you. Just to clarify, make sure we don't have any duplication. We just want to know your group's location, city and state, and if it has a name or not, so we can keep everything straight. And then, of course, the weekly time slot for your meeting that you would like to request. Okay, so you can start to think about that. You might be able to meet around the same time that you've met your group with your groups before, or it might be different. A lot of us are home all day long, so we have some flexibility, I think. And we will try to accommodate the best we can as far as your first requested time, but we just have to go through that process of getting everyone's requests, seeing how it all lays out, and then we'll be back in touch with you. So to clarify the time slot, you're going to be requesting an hour-and-a-half slot, so 9 to 10:30 on Thursday, and make sure that, of course, we know what time zone you're in, and we'll figure that out by where you're located. And we're thinking that some of you might have met on Saturdays in the past, and so to create more open slots, we thought that we would open up our calendar from Monday all the way to Saturday. And we can start our meetings, we think, around 9 a.m. Eastern time, because some of us are on the East Coast, of course, and we might want to start the day that way. And then we can have quite a long day because we can go all the way into Pacific time, so 8 p.m. Pacific time. So that would be Monday through Saturday, 9 to 8. Hopefully that's making sense because I can't see any of your faces right now, but we'll make sure and get any questions from you if necessary. So once this happens, Trang, my trusty colleague who's on the call with us today, she's going to be receiving all these emails and coming up with our calendar, and she's going to be the one sending the confirmation email back to you saying, yes, you have this time of the week, and this is your link, your meeting link, and this is your passcode or your password, because these meetings will be password protected, so we have more security. So that's the next step. We are currently, the staff at PMD Alliance, we are putting together an agreement. We thought it would just be good to have a document that outlines the expectations on both sides, and just what we're going to be providing you, and everything that we're expecting on your end. So this agreement is going to be an important part of this organizational process. And so we're hoping that this agreement is going to be completed by Thursday. And so we will be able to send that agreement out to you. And then this agreement will need to be signed by you, and we're making our best efforts to have it be all electronic, so you don't have to print, sign it, scan it, because some of us might not have that equipment. So we're going to try to make this as easy as possible, but when you send us your email with all of this information and your requested meeting time, we would like to receive the agreement at the same time. So everything is just efficient. It all happens at the same time. Hopefully that's clear. Because of the lag time, we're going to do our best to get everything back to you, but we might be able to start group meetings as early as like late next week. So it just is going to depend, and we'll be in touch with you. And so you'll be able to be in touch with your group members once you have our confirmation, to let them know when your meetings will be starting. And so the way this works is that you're going to have this confirmation email, you're going to have the Zoom link and a password that you will then provide to your members. You probably are in contact with them via email, so that's how you would send it to them, so they know what time and day, they have the link, they have the password, so they can access the meeting when it comes time. Okay, moving on. We're going to be doing, or I'm going to be showing you today a Zoom video tutorial. And there are several topics that we're going to be covering. And Trang, again, she made these great videos. I just wanted to kind of explain a little bit. So what's challenging about training on Zoom is that the Zoom functionality is meant to be invisible when we're on a call, right? So if I'm a host and if I'm trying to share how to be a host, for instance, when I'm sharing my screen, all of that disappears. Like I can see it from my end, but you can't see it. So what we had to do, Trang, she actually recorded her experience as she was working on Zoom. And so we've made little YouTube videos with that so that you can actually see, okay, the button is in the top right-hand corner, and then I have to go to, and I'll see this pop-up window and that sort of thing. So that's why we're showing you YouTube videos as opposed to trying to do it live and in person, because you won't be able to see it. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to be going through these things here. How to join a meeting. So that will be for you and for all of your group members. How to claim the host status. So we've talked a little bit about having 2 people running a meeting ideally. And if that's the case, then we're going to have a host, and then we're going to have a co-host. So we'll talk about how to claim host status first, and then how to add a co-host onto the call so that you can have some help. We're going to talk about how to mute and unmute participants, which is really important if unforeseen background noise happens or feedback, or it's just really helpful for someone to be able to control it from the other side. Sometimes people just lose track and they don't realize that they can be heard. And so just to eliminate any distractions, it's great to be able to navigate this easily. And then how to remove participants. So we might have heard in some of the articles coming out recently about Zoom and Zoom bombing. So that's when someone who's unwelcome just happens to log on to a Zoom meeting and they might be distracting in some way. They might be trying to, talk in the middle or share their screen, or so that we just want to have this capability, and co-hosts and hosts have the ability to remove a participant. So we'll talk about that. And then finally, we'll talk about how to screen share. So that's how to show something on your screen. It could be a PowerPoint like this. It might be a video from the internet. So it's just a really nice tool to have to add some life and content to your meetings. So we'll share how to do that. Okay, so I'm going to get out of this and I am going to stop sharing for a second just so I can see your faces. Okay, hi there again. All right, so how are we doing? It looks like we have some, okay, I have some chats going on here. All right, so do we schedule weekly? Yes, we're going to be keeping the same time for your meeting every week. So that will eliminate all that organization that has to switch up from one week to the next. Let's just keep it consistent so that you know when it's happening, your group members know when it's happening, and there's no guessing. We found that this consistency is super helpful, and so we're gonna keep that same time every week.
And Shannon, can I just add in, as we mentioned last week, since I did get a question about this, please do not share the link or the password for the meeting on any websites, Facebook groups, social media. If you need to, obviously you do need to get this to your people, but please make sure you're emailing this information. This will protect you. It'll really cut down on people being able to enter your meeting. So I just want to make sure it's out there. It is a part of the agreement that you'll get, but I do just want to have it out there for everyone. And so yeah.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. And that I think is applicable to this question from Robin asking, will each group's host password be different, or do we share? So we're going to be working off of a small number of accounts that we're going to be sharing amongst us. So we have to be very respectful, cognizant of time, in that you have a start time, you have an end time, because we want to have as many groups participate as possible. So just being aware of that. And it's, these rooms obviously shouldn't be used for any personal use outside of the group meeting time, that sort of thing. So yes, we will be sharing, and that's.
But to clarify that as well, even some of the host keys will be the same, but then the passwords might be different, and you're going to have different combinations. So you're not going to know who has the same room as you or the same host keys. If for some reason people are entering your room with the password and you don't know them, they weren't invited by someone in your group, they're either disruptive or they're not supposed to be there, you will have, and Shannon will go over this, but you will be able to remove participants from that meeting. They will not be able to re-enter again during that meeting. But you should also let us know if that's happening. If we don't know what we don't know. So, and we want to make sure you're protected and we are able to change passwords and host keys and stuff if they somehow get compromised. So just want to put it out there that we do have control over that, but we just need you to communicate with us.
Perfect. Thanks, Rebecca. Okay. All right, so let's move forward. Let's go ahead and talk about Zoom a little bit. And I'm going to be sharing my screen so I can show you some of those YouTube videos that Trang created for us. And these, again, will be accessible to you in the future on our resources page. So you can watch it again and again if you need, or as a reminder in the future if you forget. So let's go ahead and begin that. Let's see. Okay. All righty. So here's some basics on Zoom. So what I'm going to do is show you some of these videos and we can go step by step and talk about each subject. And if you have questions, we can go over them. All right.
Zoom meeting, you're going to want to get the Zoom link from your meeting invite and go ahead and copy and paste that into an internet browser.
It's a little blurry on this.
If you have never run Zoom on your computer before, it will ask you to download and run the Zoom application. So you'll want to go ahead and do that. If you have used Zoom on your computer before, you'll get this pop-up to ask you to open the application, which we'll go ahead and do. Once you do that, it's going to ask you to enter the meeting password. Again, you'll want to copy and paste that from your meeting invite. So go ahead and paste that in and hit join. And now you are in the Zoom meeting where you can then unmute yourself or start your video.
Hey Shannon, the screen is a bit blurry right now. It's not entirely loading. Can you send me that link and I'll share it from my side?
Sure. Let me get back to, let's see here. I'm up here. All right. So. All righty. So should I send it to you or just put it in the chat?
Can you send it to Rebecca directly, Shannon?
Sure. Pardon for the delay, everybody. We're gonna get this as clear as we can so you can see, so you actually know what we're doing. All right, so that was obviously how to join a Zoom meeting. We're all here on the call today. I don't know if we have anybody who's on the phone. So I think we're all pretty good as far as getting on Zoom, but that it could be a video that you might share with your group members if they're having trouble. So just so you know, that's how we can help them. Okay, so Rebecca, are you gonna show it again?
Yes, would everybody like me to share it again?
It's less than a minute, so I think we'll be fine if you do.
Okay, I'll press play. It looks okay on your side?
If you just expand your full screen, you know,
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so as you see, everyone, this is what an email would look like with the Zoom link sent to you. So there's a Zoom link, there's a meeting ID, and a password. So those are the important parts of this. And so let's go ahead and play.
Zoom meeting, you're going to want to get the Zoom link from your meeting invite and go ahead and copy and paste that into an internet browser. If you have never run Zoom on your computer before, it will ask you to download and run the Zoom application. So you'll want to go ahead and do that. If you have used Zoom on your computer before, you'll get this pop-up to ask you to open the application, which we'll go ahead and do. Once you do that, it's going to ask you to enter the meeting password. Again, you'll want to copy and paste that from your meeting invite. So go ahead and paste that in and hit join. And now you are in the Zoom meeting where you can then unmute yourself or start your video.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Does anyone have any questions on that before we proceed? I think we're all pretty good on that. Okay, let's move forward then. I think, Rebecca, I'm going to just send you the links because I think your internet service might be a little quicker than mine.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I'm going to go ahead and grab this next one, and this is going to be about how to claim host status. Okay, here you go, Rebecca. It's on its way. Okay, here we go. So again, this is how to claim host status. So if you or your co-host, one of you will log on first before any of the other participants do. So you'll have about 15 minutes to get onto your meeting before the start of your meeting. So this is how you would do this. So you're already in Zoom, and then
you can take over as host. The way you do that is you'll want to hover over your screen, and on the bottom here there's a participants button. Go ahead and click on that, and this will open up a list of all the participants in the meeting. And then at the bottom of that box you'll see this claim host button. You can go ahead and click on that, and then it will ask you to then put in the host key, which we will provide to you. So go ahead and enter, copy and paste whatever that host key is and hit the claim host button. And then a pop-up will tell you that you are the host now. You can also see where your name is in the participants list that now you are the host. So you're now the host of the meeting, so you'll have all the hosting capabilities.
Great, thanks, Rebecca. All right, so does anyone have any questions about that? The host key is basically another password. And so you as support group leaders will receive that host key along with the link and the meeting password and also the host key. The host key is not something that you need to send or you should send to your group members. So just to differentiate those two things. Is that clear for everyone? Does anyone have any questions? Looks like we have some questions in the chat. So something from Lee, will our group members each need to register before they can join each meeting? And that's not necessary. So this is a link. This is a pro Zoom account link that you have access to. You send it to your group members, and then there's no need for them to circle back around with us. It's just between you all. Hopefully that's clear. Lauren says, I know for hosting, we want to be on a computer, but for participants, they might be on a mobile device or computer, and they look different. Is that going to be addressed? As far as logging into a meeting, Lauren? Let's see. Lauren, I don't know if I see you. I don't know if you can unmute yourself. There you are. Hi, Lauren. Hi, what was your question about phones versus computers?
I know the screen, not for hosting, but the screens look different for participants. The way they might mute or unmute or see the gallery view versus screen view and all of that. And it looks, because we've had that issue with it looking really different on a phone versus an iPad versus a computer. So that
Right.
probably needs to eventually be addressed.
Yeah, that's something that we can look at. So Rebecca and Trang, we can talk about that. I know there are quite a few different kinds of devices out there, including Kindles and, you know, all sorts of tablets and things like that. So we might not be able to do every single kind of device, but maybe some basics like an iPhone, an Android.
Yeah, and for the most part, especially on the iOS side of things, it will be different from an iPad to an iPhone, but it's going to be pretty minimal because it's still a mobile app. And my guess is that the app is created to be pretty similar for the iOS devices, but it would look very different than a computer for sure. That I think is going to be the biggest difference. But then also with a phone, you may have, with a phone, you may also have, you know, you can only see 4 participants in gallery view versus like on a computer you can see, I think it's like 16 or 20 or something. I've never counted, but there's, you know, there's just a lot of, there are differences. So I think we could probably address them at like a more of an umbrella view, just to give at least you guys as hosts the understanding of like what some of the different little differences are.
That's great. Thank you, Rebecca. We have a question from Elizabeth asking about the password and the host key, if that's changing every week, and it is not. We're obviously, this is an experiment, so we're gonna just see how this goes. If there's ever a situation where we feel like the password's been compromised in some way, we will let everybody know who's on that Zoom account, and we'll update it at that point, and we'll let you know. But we're not planning to change things every week because we don't want you to have to then change things for your group members. We want this to be as easy and seamless as possible, so we're doing our best to be safe with it as well as we can, having a password, but not continually changing it from week to week. Hopefully that makes sense. Nancy, I heard that you were raising your hand. Do you have a question?
Well, I was just trying to register for the 10 a.m. class, and I couldn't register for the 10 a.m. So I jumped on this one, and I was about 15 minutes late, so I'm sure I've missed a lot.
Oh, okay, no problem. We are recording this, Nancy, and so you'll be able to access this in the future. No problem.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Of course. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the next video. How do we feel about that? Let me grab this for you, Rebecca. Thanks for playing these for us. Okay. And here it comes. So this one is going to be how to add a co-host. So once the first person logs in as the host using the host key, and they have that special status as host, they have the ability to make anyone else in the participant list a co-host, which also gives that person certain capabilities such as muting other people or removing them. And so let's find out how to add a co-host onto your meeting.
This participants list, you can also hover over anybody's name and you'll see that there is this more button. If you click on that, you'll see a drop down, and from there you can also change host ownership. So I can then make this participant the host of the meeting. I can also make other people co-hosts, which is more likely what you'll want to do. So if I click on that, it'll have a pop-up that asks if I want to make this participant a meeting co-host. I'll go ahead and click make co-host, and then you can see now that this participant is a co-host of the meeting.
Okay. Was that pretty clear for everyone? Yeah, it's pretty easy there. It makes
Shannon, the one thing I do, and we saw that this morning, if you do give the host over to someone else, you will not be turned into a co-host. So even if the other person is already a co-host, whoever is the host of the meeting, if you give that host away, not co-host, but just because Train touched on it, but if you give the host away, you will lose that completely. You'll become a regular participant. So just make sure whoever, if you do give that host to someone, that they can make you a co-host. Does that make sense? It's like host like 100 times. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I'm being clear.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear, and I'd like to address this a little bit right now, like the difference between a host and a co-host. So the host, if you think of them as being the top of the line, they have the most capabilities, the most functionality, and maybe even have the abilities to do things you don't even need or want to do ever. But we suggest if you do have two people who are facilitating a meeting at the same time, that the host is actually the person doing the back end, the tech part. So they're the ones who are kind of keeping their eye on the chat box. They might be looking at the participants list and making sure if someone is having a lot of background noise that that tech person can mute them if necessary. So if you think about the tech person is the one who has the most technical capability as host. And then if you're facilitating, if you're actually running the meeting, you are the one providing all the content, and you're speaking and you're talking to people. You don't necessarily need to have all those capabilities. So you're going to be the co-host. And if you're all one person doing everything, go ahead and be that host. And it'll take a little time to be able to juggle things. I'm learning as we speak as well. So it's just a little bit of a learning curve. And I think people are understanding and patient as you are. So thank you for that. Let's see. So Diana just asked, can the co-host share a screen? And yes, they can. Yeah, so that person who's facilitating, who's doing the speaking and the content part, they are absolutely able to share their screen.
Also, Shannon, I think, Nancy, did you have a question? I know we saw you waving a little bit. No? Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, great. All right, does everyone, are you ready to move forward? Let's go ahead and do the next video. So let me grab that link for you, Rebecca. So this next topic is how to mute and unmute participants on your meeting. I'm sure we've all experienced that where, you know, there's all of a sudden a dog barking or the doorbell rings or the phone goes off, and then it's quite distracting and it's hard to hear what the speaker might be saying. So this is a way for that tech back-end person to be able to help the facilitator and keep things as quiet and as possible with the least amount of distractions. So let's look at that.
There are a couple ways that you can mute or unmute users. One way is in the participant list. You can hover over any of the participants' names, and there will be this button that will either say unmute or mute. If they are currently mute, you can unmute them. If they are currently unmute, you can then go ahead and hit the button to mute them. Another thing that you can do is down on the bottom, there are these mute all and unmute all buttons. So if you need to quickly mute or unmute everyone in the room, you can go ahead and use these buttons as well.
Great. So the mute and unmute, that's a function that both co-hosts and hosts can do. I'd like to have everyone, if you don't already have this open, if you go to the bottom of your screen and there's a participants button, and so if you click on that, you'll see probably, most likely on the right-hand side of your screen, a list of people in the meeting. And you might notice if, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Rebecca, but there's a microphone next to each person. And if it has a hatch mark through it, that means that they're muted. So you can play with that yourself. So if you want to find yourself, or you can even do that from your picture. So if you hover over your own face, your own picture, you can see mute and unmute. and you can see the little, it's a red microphone on my screen. So you can play with that function a little bit. Is that clear for everybody? Muting and unmuting? Pretty straightforward, right? Not too bad. Okay, let's move on then to our next function, our next topic, which is removing a participant. So this is when someone's gotten into your meeting who doesn't necessarily belong there. And this is something that a host and a co-host can do. And Rebecca, the last video, it took a minute for it to show up before the audio. I mean, the audio came on before the video, so maybe let that settle in. Thank you.
Sort of wondered that, so I'll wait this time. Just let me know when it's there.
It's there. We're ready.
Great.
There are a couple ways that you can mute or unmute users. One way is in the participant list. You can hover over any of the participants' names, and there will be this button that will either say unmute or mute. If they are currently mute, you can unmute them.
Yeah, that was
It's the same video. I was like, I'm sorry.
If they are currently unmute, you can then.
Hold on. Technical difficulties.
It's gonna happen.
Yes. I think I grabbed two. I'm sorry, they merged together for me.
And also,
I think it's this one.
Okay.
You can see?
Yes.
Great. Sorry about that, everyone.
you can also remove any users from the meeting. So if someone is in the room and they shouldn't be, you can do so by going to the participants list and hovering over the user's name. Then you'll want to hit this more button and the drop down menu will pop up, and you'll want to go ahead and hit remove. So I'm going to go ahead and do that so you can see what that looks like. This pop-up will show up as if you want to remove this participant, and then once removed, this participant will not be able to rejoin the meeting. So just keep in mind that for meetings that have already started, once you remove someone from the meeting, they will not be able to rejoin the meeting. But once that meeting has ended, and then for example, when you start a new meeting the following week, the person can then join that meeting since that is a new meeting.
Alrighty. Is that clear for everyone? Yeah, and say you did have to remove someone who wasn't supposed to be there. Hopefully it was you know, nothing, no bad intentions. Maybe it was just, oops, I got a, you know, the wrong group time or something like that, as opposed to a total stranger outside of our community. But if something like that does happen, just let us know. And that's one of the examples of when we might change our password and then let everybody know. Okay, there is a question over here that Robin, it's a really great question that Robin is asking. She's saying, for this meeting, I'm assuming Shannon is a co-host and perhaps Rebecca or Trang is the host. So you're right, Robin, I am a co-host. We actually have another staff member, Amanda, can you wave your hand? She's my tech backend today. Thanks, Amanda. So we have Trang and we have Rebecca on as well. I'm just lucky that I have supportive colleagues who are here to help me. But Amanda is actually the host and she is the one doing the tech backend today. So how would I suggest, let's see, let me back up a little bit. Shannon would be similar to a guest speaker we might have for our meetings, yes. How would you suggest that the speaker, such as me, handle the chat? I've noticed that the host, Rebecca or Trang, or that's actually Amanda, can easily handle many of the chat questions. Is there a way that the host can point out questions in the chat that the co-host needs to answer rather than having the co-host look through the whole chat list? So that's definitely something that you can work out with your group, your your co-facilitator and or your guest speaker. So I know for me, I'm not the best multitasker. So it's really hard for me to pay attention to what I'm doing and then reading this. And then, I'm just, so that's why Rebecca and Trang and Amanda, they're so helpful for me because they're really helping keep an eye on things. So I might miss, especially if you have a lot, if you have a running list of questions and then something's way up here that I didn't catch when I was talking. So for sure, that's something that you can designate to someone, or even maybe a third person can be the chat box person. So Rebecca, am I right that they can assign co-host to more than one person?
You can. The host will have that capability.
Great. Okay. So yes, you can speak with your guest speaker about that. Maybe they prefer verbal questions. So they might prefer that videos are on and then somebody waves their hand and then they can be unmuted or unmute themselves and actually verbally ask the question, or that guest speaker might prefer everything stays in the chat box. So there are many options and you can figure out what works best and just trial and error. That's how it goes. Hopefully that answered your question, Robin. Okay, I think we've got one more video to show you. And this is going to be about how to share your screen, which I think is pretty fancy. I really like it. All right, so Rebecca, it's on its way now. Okay, and for the time being, are you going to point out the raise hand? You do have to scroll to the bottom. So let's see, Sandra. So the raise hand, it's funny because sometimes I feel like I see it and sometimes I don't. I feel like because I'm a co-host, I don't have a raise hand button.
Yes,
and so
that's 100% right.
Yeah, and so it's only for a participant who's just calling on to the call. So there's a little blue hand that's in a little menu, I believe in the participants box. And that is a way, if you like, for someone to let you know as the guest speaker or as the host of the meeting that they have a question. So the little hand will show up. Let's see. Could you do that for, no, you can't do it either, Rebecca. Let's see, Bernadette, I see your face right there. Can you please raise your hand and then show us what that looks like? So I see a few. Now in your participants box, if anyone raises their hand, they go right to the top of the list and you'll see, do you see all that happening? So anyone who has a question can go to the top of the list. So you don't have to keep scrolling depending on how many people you have in your group. And so it's right there. So I could say, oh, Sheila from Tucson. She has her hand raised, and then we can ask her to unmute herself, ask her question, and then I have the ability to lower her hand. Yeah, so I can lower her hand. She goes away, she goes back down to the list, and then we go to the next question. So that's another function that we have. Okay.
All right, you guys ready for this? I just wanted to let you answer that question before I...
Yes, let's do our last one. And this is how to share our screen.
Share your screen. You can do.
You can see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Share your screen. You can do so by hovering on your Zoom meeting, and then down on the bottom there's this button to share your screen. If you hit that button, a few things will pop up. You can share an entire desktop or a specific application or program that you have open. So for example, if I wanted to share my Outlook calendar, which is currently open, I would hit that button and I would be able to share that. So for now, I'm going to just share this desktop screen and hit the share button. And then you can see that it's sharing my desktop. If I wanted to then stop sharing at any point, You should have these control buttons at the top of your screen, so I can then pause my screen sharing or I can hit stop share.
Okay. So yes, I just want to maybe clarify a little bit what happens when you say you want to share your screen and this box pops up and then you have all these options. So I don't know about you all, but I always have a ton of things open on my computer all at the same time. So I might have my email open, I might have an Excel spreadsheet open, a Word document, things like that. So the computer is sensing all of these things that you have open at the same time. And so it's actually asking, what exactly do you want to share? Do you want to share a Word document with the meeting, or do you simply just want to say share the desktop, which would allow you, which is what I've been doing, just to move my windows around and then bring forward to the front what I want you to see. And that just gives me a lot of freedom to move around and jump from application to application without having to go back and say, now I want to share this other thing, because you can do that. You can go from one application to another, but it's a little more complicated. I do want to, I wonder if we could bring that back up, Rebecca. I want to point out that computer sound.
Mm-hmm. Yep, just give me 1 second. Share. You want to share the same one I was just on?
Yeah, the same video, and then if you pause it, and I'll just describe.
Okay, where do you
share your screen?
Just tell me when
do
to pause.
so by hovering on your Zoom meeting, and then down on the bottom there's this button to share your screen. If you hit that button,
there,
okay.
right?
Yeah, right there. So this is the example of what all the different applications that Trang had open on her computer at that time. So she, had her messages, she had her email, Microsoft Outlook, her calendar, et cetera, et cetera. So that's when she could select any of those items to share. I wanted to point out to you at the bottom of that dialog box there, the share computer sound. There's an ability to click on that. And then there's also next to that, optimize screen share for video clip. So this is what I had done before today's session. And I believe Rebecca would have done the same thing, because we're sharing YouTube videos that have audio. So if we want to make that sound the best that we can, you can click that share computer sound and optimize screen share for video clips. So it's just better, it's optimizing the functionality of those things. So just if you are playing something with audio or a moving video, that sort of thing, you can click on those two things to make it look and sound better. Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, and just to add to Shannon's point, kind of beat this thing home, it really does make a difference. Otherwise, your computer is going to, your microphone's going to be trying to listen to, your voice or whatever is, going on in the background. And this way, it really blocks out any background noise or anything like that. And if you notice when I did it, it really sounded clear, right? As if it was coming right from your computer. So really, it seems like a small thing, but it really makes a big difference.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. We've got some questions coming in on the chat, which is great. We have another 10 minutes or so for this training session. So let's try to make sure everyone's questions get answered. Lee says, please remind how to find the host control screen with the options you're discussing. So Lee, let's see, what page are you on? There you are. I see your flowers at the bottom. So I believe you mean that you're like, how do you claim host? And that's with the host key, which is a special password. All of these little videos, these YouTube videos, are going to be offered to you and accessible to you after this meeting. And this was also, I think Mary Jane had that question. So this recording of this whole training will be accessible to you, plus the links for those YouTube videos. So we just have to make sure and those get to the right place for you to access them, but we are gonna work on that. Okay. Sandra says, it appears the chat box goes away when the screen share is on. Is that true or just on my Mac? So
it's not entirely true, but it does make it a little bit more difficult to chat. I have actually had issues where I thought I was sharing a video and I was just sharing my desktop screen, and I couldn't see the chat where everybody was telling me they couldn't see anything. So what happens is, and I'll try my best to explain, but when you share your screen, you'll notice that you get the bar that's usually at the bottom of your window. Like right now, you have that bar that's at the bottom with your mute and video and chat and all of that. And that, when you share screen, usually goes to the top of the screen. On my Mac and PC act a little differently. But sometimes you'll get it, it'll be just like a bar that moves around the screen. But on that, there is a little, there's like a more button. I think it's at the very end. And it, actually, I'm gonna share my screen again. You'll see this same video that we just had. I'll actually see if I can take a screenshot of it. Yeah, I have this bar that I moved from the top. Let me see if I can take a screenshot of this for you guys.
Rebecca, those are showing up as black boxes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, I don't know if I can take the screenshot. I keep trying. But basically, there's a more button at the very end. I wish you guys could see it. And it's the very first option on that more button. We'll see if we can get you guys a screenshot of that, but that will allow you to pull your chat up so you can see people asking any questions. We'll make sure to get that to you guys. It's just hard to share when it's on like the presenter side right now.
Yes, and on that point, let's see here. I just had a question. If a participant by accident clicks on share screen, what happens from the host or co-host perspective? So there's Amanda, I think do you want to speak to that, or do you want Rebecca to talk about that?
I will try, and Rebecca, if I'm misspeaking, you help me out. So on the top right, you can see the list of participants. And if you're the host, you can mute or unmute people. You can stop their camera. And then if you hover over a person's name, there's a little arrow that says more. And you can stop a screen share there.
You can also, when someone starts screen sharing, I found this is very fast for me. Actually, at the top of your screen as the host, it'll say so-and-so is sharing their screen, and there's actually a red button right next to it that says stop participant sharing, and I always just click that right as quick as I can because it happens on accident. You know, people don't mean to do it or they don't know what the button does, and so you can just click that. To me, that's much easier, a much quicker way.
Great. 2 options there. Cool. Thank you. Let's see, Paul says he discovered that you can unraise your hand by clicking a second time. That's good. Sydney, I think, says, can you tell us again how to optimize the sound from a video? So that is from the screen share window. When you hit share screen, and then that box pops up with all the different options of things you can share, all the different applications open at that time. In the bottom left-hand corner of that box, there's an option to, what does it say? Let me do it so I can, share computer sound. So share computer sound, you click on that, and then you can also click on right next to it the option to optimize screen share for video clip. And so those 2 things you can click on to make that's it. Perfect, thank you, Rebecca. To make your sound and video look better to all of your members. Okay. Stopping a screen share is an option for both the co-host and the host. Yes. Great. I think we may have, again, it's like when all the questions come in, you hope you don't miss something. So does anyone have anything? You can raise your hand, you can unmute yourself.
you may have answered this, and I'm sorry if I missed your answer to this, but I did see a question earlier about the second person assisting with some, like when you have a ton of questions. Amanda or Shannon, I know both of you have assisted with this before. Do you have any additional advice on some of that? Because it is a lot when you're facilitating and seeing questions. You know, I think you mentioned like being able to like call out. I'm sorry if I'm like re-asking a question that you've already answered.
No, that actually popped up just now again in the chat box from Robin. So it was her question before. So back to my question about making life easier for the speaker. So would the chat box person say, speaker so-and-so asked a question in chat, here it is. And then she said, yes, I don't think it makes sense for the speaker to be looking at the chat box. So yeah, again, it's up to you. It's finding that synergy, the dynamic between the host or if you have a guest speaker, and just kind of figuring it out. Again, I'm new at this, and so I'm trying to do a lot of things at the same time. I know my colleagues, they are sending me private messages at the same time saying, you missed this question, go back. And, you know, so there's like even more stuff going on than maybe you even see. So it's just a team effort. And that's really all I can say. And so I think that it's a great idea, Robin, if you have that agreement with your guest speaker that they don't need to deal with that. They're just concentrating on the content and addressing the audience. And then someone else is going to say, hey, you know, this person has this question. You can also say, we're going to wait for all questions to be at the very end of the program. And then you could do one-on-one, you know, one at a time rather. You know, each person can unmute themselves, for instance, and ask the question in real time. And so it's not this situation of things building up and then you have to like scramble and try to figure out what to answer first, or maybe there's a theme between different questions, things like that. So it's just really figuring it out for yourself, I think.
And for any of you who have come on to one of our online programs, you'll notice that we use the chat a lot. And the way the synergy we have found works really well is a lot of times the facilitator, so that and I'm speaking as if you have someone who's coming in and doing a talk, whether it's a doctor or a farmer rep, or I mean, I don't know a ton about the speakers that you guys have coming in, but if you have someone like that who's presenting, having someone just to be that facilitator, to be able to read the chat and ask the questions as they come, can be really, really beneficial too. That person doesn't even technically even need to be a co-host if it's just somebody in your group that maybe has been there for a while and feels comfortable with something like that. It's really up to you guys. I hope that is a good option, or that I just know that for us, that's been something that's worked really, really, really well.
Thanks, Rebecca. So we have a couple more questions. I'm going to try to wrap this up in a minute.
It looks like Nancy's still waving her hand. I'm going to help unmute her. Go ahead, Nancy.
Hi, do I have to re-register? I'd like to watch the 10 a.m. class and also the class on Thursday. Do I have to register again?
Which classes are you talking about, Nancy? Which ones do you mean?
The 10 class that's just like this one came in late, and I think I missed some things. And also on Thursday, isn't there a class again on how to do Zoom?
Yes, this is the only training for Zoom. So you might be speaking of another class, I'm not sure, but then yes, on Thursday morning, same time, we're going to be having part 2. Okay, so and you would need to register for that, and that just helps me know who's coming on, and I can be in touch with everyone with a follow-up email. So unless you register, I don't know you're here, and I can't I can't get back in touch with you. So that's what's really helpful for me. If you register every time, I know it's a little bit of a pain, but you could help us out by doing that.
Okay, so do you send us a link how to register for Thursday?
I'll send a follow-up email for today with some information, and that will include again, the link for registration for Thursday.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Sure. So David says, we use Meetup to schedule announced support group meetings. It is a private Meetup group open only to approved members. Can we post these meeting links on the Meetup site? I would say that if it's a private group and no one else is going to be gaining access to this link, then that would be fine. It's just another way you're communicating. Rebecca, what do you know about Meetup?
Meetup is a website. It's like a social website where people can like find out about meetings, etc. And there is privacy, so as long as it is a private group, I would be very careful, because you can have people, you could accept them into your group and then they could take it and leave. But depending on how you have those settings, if it's open, if it's a free-for-all that anybody can join your group, or I would not post that information on there. I would potentially get an email list. I think sending it by email is probably your safest bet. People can still forward it along to their friends, but it's at least not up on a website that can have, you know, anybody could have access to that page.
Does that answer your question, David? Yeah, great. Okay. Thank you. Linda asks, is there a privacy code for recording and posting Zoom meetings? So that's something that we I believe it's going to be included in the agreement. I haven't seen the latest version, so we'll maybe think about adding something, but
I don't think we're not going to allow the option for recording the meeting, I think.
Right, and it's
for privacy.
Yeah, it's along the same lines, like you wouldn't want to record an in-person meeting, support group meeting, because you want that confidentiality and you don't want it to be listened to or seen by people that you don't know, and whatever stays in the group, you know, happens in the group stays in the group. So that's our perspective on that.
And the other thing is, you know, I know there's been a lot of articles out there and there's a lot of concerns about privacy, and a lot of it is not 100% wrong. But what's really important to always keep in mind is the details. And so someone actually just sent us an article questioning the privacy because Zoom meetings had gotten leaked. And one of the most important, I think, lines in that article had been, it didn't come from Zoom that was unsafe. It was that people were saving them and saving them in like Dropboxes and places online and sharing them. And that's why I don't think that we should have those available, because that's where you put yourself open or your group open for some sort of risk. And we want to really minimize that. And we want people to feel comfortable and confident using the platform.
Thank you. Sheila asks, is it possible to use a password manager, a safe app, to allow logins to be different every time? So only the host needs to remember a password. So that gets tricky because that's you know, changing things from week to week, but we want the meetings to be password protected for everyone. And so even participants in your group need to have the password in order to get in. That's where the security is going to come into play. And so that's why we want to keep the password consistent from week to week, because your group members might get quite confused if things change up every single week. So that's our thinking on that. And again, we're just going to try it out and we're going to see what happens. And I would love all of you to stay in close contact with me and let me know what happens. And if there are any issues, then we can troubleshoot and figure it out. But as we start, this is our best idea, to make things easy, accessible, efficient, and then we'll go from there. Linda says, what if you have a guest speaker anyway, just to record, perhaps just record the speaker? It's the whole meeting that gets recorded. And so, yes, there are some programs that we even have at PMD Alliance that we cannot record because of certain restrictions, and it has to be HIPAA, compliant and all of that. So there are even times when we are not allowed to record for future viewing. So hopefully that is okay with you. Dave, when the host or co-host does a mute all, there is also the option there to allow participants to unmute themselves. Yes, so that's when they would hover over their box and then click the unmute button. Is that true, Rebecca? Am I getting that right? Yes.
Yep, that's 100% right. Thank you, Dave. He's our resident Zoom genius. Dave always gives us little awesome tips and tricks. So yes, even if you do does a mute all for, if the host does a mute all for everyone, you can as long there is an option to ensure that people are able to unmute themselves, even if you do that.
And he's also mentioned in the past on another call Dave has, is that you can hit the space bar. If you're muted, you hit the space bar and hold it down like a walkie-talkie. It will temporarily unmute you. Then you let your hand off the space bar and you're muted again. So that's a really cool trick too. Yes, Dave. If you want, do you want to unmute yourself?
No, see, that's the problem. You've got that switch set so that we can't unmute ourselves. Because I can't. But
yes, and I just clicked it so that you can.
Okay, because that's why I brought that up, because you had that checked that we couldn't unmute ourselves.
Yes.
Oh, so that's a host. That's a host function right there.
That's a host function.
Yes, so you can either give the option to silence everyone and they don't have any control, or you can say yes, people can unmute themselves and speak at will.
Thank
That's
you.
Great. Thank you, Dave. All right, so it's almost 10 after. Oh my goodness. We had a lot of great questions today. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, this is being recorded. We will find a way to get the individual links to those YouTube videos with the specific topics to you, so you can keep reviewing them and even sharing them with your co-hosts and in your groups. So hopefully that's been helpful. If you would like to email me any specific questions you would like addressed in Thursday's session, hopefully you're all registered for that, please go ahead and email me at shannon@pmdalliance.org, and you can get any questions in there. We might go through a few more of the functions, or we might just answer questions on the basics and then talk a little bit about online facilitation. I feel like we can continue to have these trainings in the future and maybe get into more depth, if we have no idea what we're in for as far as being stuck at home. So we might as well keep learning, right? And advancing our skills.
Shannon, can I make a quick comment too?
Yes, Dave.
A lot of times in these meetings, there's a lot of good stuff in the chat room that people want to save. If we put links in there, for instance. And before you close the meeting, if you want to save the chat stuff, just go to the bottom right-hand corner of the chat window where you see the 3 little dots, and click that, and you can save the chat, and it'll save it right to a file on your computer. If you want, and so you don't have to try and write all that down. If you just want to make a photocopy of it, basically.
That's a great idea, Dave. Yes, and I'm hoping that this recording, the one that comes through Zoom, it's a little hard to understand. It won't be a YouTube video necessarily. So we'll see how this goes. But the recording that we have from the info session from last week, it included the screen of everyone's faces and the screen sharing, but it also recorded the chat that was happening as it went through time, if that makes sense. So you can actually look at that at the recording of the meeting. So hopefully that's what we're gonna have here too. And you can reference any of these questions in the future or any of these links. Let's see, how do you get the host key and the first site? So the host key will be sent to you as support group leaders. That will come in the confirmation email. And the first site, yes, so the link itself, the meeting link, will be sent to you, the password to get into that room because it's secure and safe. And then if you want to become a host, you're going to claim that host from a button in the bottom corner. And then that's when it's going to ask you for that host key. And again, you can refer back to these videos in the future if you have questions. Okie dokie. All right. Thanks for staying on, everybody. You're troopers. And please go ahead and register for Thursday. And we'll see you then. Let me know if you have any questions, Shannon at pmdalliance.org. All righty. Thank you all. Have
Great
a great
job,
week.
Shannon.
Take care, everyone.